The galaxy was vast, stretching across countless star systems, filled with ancient civilizations, powerful empires, and unimaginable wonders. But in the far reaches of space, there was one planet that no one thought was worth paying attention to: Earth. To the advanced races of the galaxy, Earth was nothing more than a forgotten myth, a place from ancient history. The idea of humanity had faded into legends, stories told by old explorers, if anyone even remembered it at all. The powerful galactic empires, such as the HFY Dominion and the Shaldra Collective, ruled over the stars with their advanced technology and military might. They controlled countless planets, each one thriving in their own way, constantly expanding their reach. Humanity, if it ever existed, had been long lost in the endless expanse of time. The idea of human beings still alive or capable of doing anything significant seemed laughable to the galaxy's elite. The HFY Dominion had sent expeditions to Earth millennia ago. They had found nothing but ruins, empty cities, broken artifacts, and a dead planet. They left, not caring to investigate further. Primitive species, they had labeled Earth. Gone forever. After all, how could a civilization that once created great wonders now be reduced to dust? But there was something strange about Earth, something that the rest of the galaxy had completely missed. In the hidden corners of the galaxy, ancient records spoke of a warlike species that could destroy whole fleets with just a single ship, stories that were laughed off as just another fairy tale. After all, how could such a myth survive for thousands of years? However, deep within the archives of the Shaldra Collective, one scholar came across a peculiar document. It was old, so old that the ink had nearly faded from the page, but it contained references to Earth, something the galaxy's leaders had never taken seriously. The document told stories of ancient humans, how they survived against all odds, their unrelenting nature, and how their technology, though primitive by galactic standards, was capable of feats far beyond what anyone had ever imagined. But the real question was, why was this information kept secret? The scholar presented the findings to his superiors, who dismissed it as irrelevant. It wasn't until an anonymous signal from the farthest reaches of space, intercepted by their communication network, that the galaxy's perspective on Earth was about to shift forever. The signal came in the middle of the night, strange and almost indecipherable. The Shaldra Collective's brightest minds scrambled to decode the transmission. It didn't take long before they realized the terrifying truth. The signal wasn't just a message, it was a warning. The warning spoke of a power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and it was coming from Earth. The leaders of the Shaldra Collective gathered in haste. The old stories of humans being nothing more than myth were suddenly no longer comforting. Earth, once a forgotten legend, was not only real, it was now a significant threat. The message was clear: humans are coming. Fear rippled through the elite corridors of the galaxy's ruling powers. Earth, once thought insignificant, was now a looming figure in the stars, and for the first time in centuries, they all began to wonder, what if humans were not just a myth? What if their legends were true? What if humanity's power was real? The powerful fleets of the Shaldra Collective, with their advanced weaponry and unchallenged dominance, began to mobilize. They could no longer ignore the warning. They would go to Earth, confront this threat, and put an end to the myth once and for all. The galaxy's top military commanders were assigned to lead the mission. They would not be caught unprepared again. But even as the fleet moved toward Earth, the question lingered in their minds. What if this myth was more than just a tale? And more importantly, what if Earth was not the weak, insignificant place they had once thought? In the darkest corners of the galaxy, the empires whispered, what if Earth was never really destroyed? What if they have been hiding their true power all along? The stories that had been laughed at, the legends passed down through generations, were now the subject of serious conversations. The mysterious message that had been intercepted was the first sign, but it wouldn't be the last. As the Shaldra fleet approached Earth, every commander knew this mission would be different. They had faced countless enemies in the past, but none like this. What was waiting for them on Earth? Could humanity truly hold the power to change the entire galaxy? Back on Earth, no one knew what was coming. The people had no idea that their myths and stories were about to become very real. Earth's past, buried deep in history, was about to resurface in a way no one could have predicted. The galaxy's most powerful empire was about to meet the most unexpected enemy of all. Humanity had always been dismissed, always underestimated. But soon, the galaxy would learn the shocking truth. Earth was no longer just a myth, and humanity was no longer a forgotten relic of the past. And with that realization, the fate of the entire galaxy would change forever. The Shaldra Collective's fleet surged toward Earth with unimaginable speed. They were equipped with the most advanced ships in the galaxy, capable of crossing vast distances in a fraction of the time it took lesser civilizations. Yet, for all their might, as they closed in on the blue and green world, a growing unease settled among the fleet's commanders. They had no idea what lay ahead. They had no idea that everything they knew about Earth was about to be shattered. The fleet was a sight to behold. Massive ships, some the size of small moons, gliding silently through the void. Each ship carried fleets of smaller vessels, heavily armed and ready for anything. The best warriors, engineers, and scientists were aboard. They had been sent on a mission to eliminate what had once been thought of as a myth. But now, it felt more like they were walking into the unknown. The commanders, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning everything. The intercepted signal had been puzzling enough. But it was the rumors that followed, the whispers of Earth's hidden power, that kept them awake at night. What if the humans were more than just stories? What if the very beings they had written off as primitive were capable of things far beyond their understanding? As the fleet drew closer, the ancient records began to surface again. The Shaldra Collective scholars worked furiously to decode the message that had been sent across the stars. The more they analyzed it, the more they realized that Earth was no ordinary planet. The myth of humanity was much more than a distant memory. It was a reality they could no longer ignore. The planet Earth had a strange magnetic field that some scientists had theorized could have been responsible for the human legends in the first place. Perhaps their ancestors had once been powerful enough to wield energies that could rival the most advanced civilizations. But no one had dared explore that theory until now. Aboard one of the flagship vessels, Commander Vexer sat in his darkened command chamber, staring out at the planet below. He was a hardened warrior, having led countless successful campaigns across the galaxy. But Earth was different. It wasn't just a planet, it was an enigma. His thoughts drifted to the stories, the humans, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things, yet somehow they had survived. The more he thought about it, the more unsettling it became. How could such a primitive species have endured for so long? It was then that the signal came again, clearer this time. A direct communication from Earth. Vexer's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just an old myth. Earth was sending a message, and they were waiting for him. He ordered the fleet to prepare for the final approach. He knew that the mission was critical, but something gnawed at him. Could humanity truly possess the power to change the course of galactic history? Could they really challenge the might of the Shaldra Collective? On Earth, the world was unaware of the threat closing in from the stars. The people lived their daily lives, unaware of the ancient powers stirring beneath the surface of their planet. But deep within Earth's military forces, certain high-ranking officers had already begun to suspect that something was happening. They knew that the galaxy was watching, that the rumors about Earth's untapped potential had not gone unnoticed. But the true scope of what was coming was still unclear. In the underground bunkers of Earth's military command, General Petra Klein was reviewing old records, ones that had long been classified. As an expert on Earth's early history, she had heard the stories of the ancient civilizations that had once risen and fallen, and there were certain tales, whispered only among the highest circles, that spoke of Earth's untouchable power, a force that had been hidden away, locked in the secrets of the past. General Klein knew that humanity had always been underestimated. Earth had always been dismissed as nothing more than a curiosity, a small, insignificant planet among billions of others. But deep down, she could feel it. The truth. Humanity was stronger than the galaxy realized. It wasn't their technology or their weapons that made them dangerous. It was something else. Something far older, far more powerful. As the fleet from the Shaldra Collective approached, General Klein's mind raced. She knew it was only a matter of time before Earth's hidden strength would be put to the test. What would they find? Would humanity be able to stand against such overwhelming power? But what if they didn't need to stand at all? Back in the vastness of space, Commander Vexer's fleet began its descent toward Earth. Every officer aboard, from the lowest ranks to the highest, knew that this moment would define the future, the fate of the galaxy, and perhaps even their own survival, now rested on the mission they were about to complete. And yet, as the massive ships closed in, the mystery of Earth remained. What had once been a legend was now a living, breathing reality, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the fleet prepared for their final approach, an ominous silence fell over the ships. Commander Vexer stood at the center of the control room, his hands resting lightly on the console in front of him. His crew waited, breathless. The time had come. But what they didn't know was that as they drew closer to Earth, they were not the only ones preparing. Earth was ready for them too, but not in the way they expected. The galaxy's greatest fear was about to come to life. As the massive fleet of the Shaldra Collective descended toward Earth's atmosphere, an eerie silence took over their ships. Even the most battle-hardened commanders aboard the fleet couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for them, something ancient and powerful. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, but Earth was different. It was a mystery wrapped in legend. Commander Vexer stood at the helm of his flagship, gazing at the blue and green orb below. His hands clenched, his mind racing. His fleet was the most powerful in the galaxy, capable of obliterating entire civilizations. But Earth was something else, something they had underestimated. The closer they got, the more unnerved he felt. He couldn't shake the feeling that Earth wasn't going to roll over like the countless other civilizations they had crushed. There was something here that defied all logic, something that was about to shake the very foundation of galactic power. As the fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, they encountered resistance, but it wasn't what they expected. At first, they thought it was an automatic defense system, some sort of primitive technology designed to ward off invaders. But as the energy shields and weapons of the fleet engaged, they quickly realized they were wrong. The Earth's resistance wasn't like anything they had ever seen. It wasn't just some old weapon system. It was a force that defied explanation. The Shaldra Collective's ships, though advanced, found their systems momentarily scrambled by a strange energy field that rippled through space. Weapons systems malfunctioned, shields flickered, and communication links went dead for a brief moment. It wasn't a weapon that could be seen, but the power it held was undeniable. What's happening? Vexer barked as he turned to his chief engineer, a young officer named Juris. He was visibly shaken by the strange interference. It's not a weapon, Commander, Juris replied, his voice trembling. It's like some kind of energy field. But it's not anything we've encountered before. It's ancient. I can't explain it. The officers around him exchanged uncertain glances. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a force unto itself. We must proceed, Vexer said with a grim tone. We've come too far to turn back now. Prepare for landing. On Earth, the world was bracing for the unknown. Governments, military officials, and global leaders were all watching, waiting for the Shaldra Collective's next move. But deep beneath the surface of Earth, in the long-forgotten caverns of ancient ruins, an awakening was happening. The human race had long known that they were more than just a species. They had known there was something hidden beneath the surface of their planet, something powerful, something untouchable. General Petra Klein stood in a secret military installation deep underground, surrounded by her top officers. She had been studying Earth's ancient history for years, trying to uncover the truth about humanity's untapped potential. The legend of Earth's untouchable power had always been dismissed as myth. But the truth, as Klein now understood it, was something far more profound. "This is it," Klein whispered as she looked over the data screens. "The time has come." A soft hum filled the air as the ancient machinery beneath them stirred to life. For centuries, humanity had forgotten the truths buried in the ruins of Earth. But the time for secrets was over. "What's happening, General?" asked one of her officers, a young lieutenant named Diaz, as he watched the systems activate. The room was bathed in the soft glow of ancient consoles and energy sources that had not been touched for millennia. "It's awakening," Klein said, her voice steady but filled with awe. "The power that humanity once wielded. It's real. It's here. We never fully understood it, but now we have no choice but to face it." She turned to her officers. "Prepare for the worst. The Sheldra Collective may think they're invincible, but they have no idea what they're about to encounter." Meanwhile, Commander Vexer's fleet continued its descent. Their sensors were overloaded by the strange energy emanating from Earth. As they approached the surface, the true scale of Earth's resistance began to reveal itself. In a display of unimaginable power, a massive energy wave suddenly shot upward from the planet. It wasn't a weapon. It was something much older, something tied to the very core of Earth. The Sheldra ships, already on edge, struggled to maintain their position in the face of the sudden assault. "Activate shields," Vexer shouted, but his command was too late. The energy wave washed over the fleet, stunning the entire armada. Ships were thrown off course, their systems crashing. The mighty Sheldra fleet, once so feared and revered, was brought to a halt. The commanders of the fleet were stunned. Their ships were disoriented, their weapons systems malfunctioning. There was no immediate way to respond to this new threat. "What is this?" Vexer shouted in disbelief. One of the officers turned pale. It's as if the planet itself is alive." In that moment, Vexer realized the truth. Earth was not just a myth. It wasn't some primitive world to be conquered. It was a sleeping giant, and the legends had been true all along. This power, the untouchable force, was real. But Vexer wasn't ready to accept defeat. His pride, and the pride of the Sheldra Collective, couldn't allow it. The fleet's mission was to conquer and dominate, not to retreat. Earth had shown them its power, but Vexer wasn't about to let that power dictate his actions. "We will not yield," he growled, his eyes blazing with determination. "Prepare to engage. We will face this threat head-on." As the Sheldra fleet struggled to regain control, Earth's resistance continued to grow. The legends were no longer stories. They were a reality. Humanity's untouchable power had been awakened, and now the galaxy would witness what Earth was truly capable of. In the underground command center, General Klein's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "It's time to show them who we are." The battle for Earth had only just begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Sheldra fleet was in chaos. Their systems were malfunctioning, and they were vulnerable in ways they had never anticipated. Commander Vexer paced anxiously on the bridge of his flagship, trying to regain control of his fleet. His fingers danced across the holographic controls, but nothing seemed to work. It was as if the planet itself was resisting them. "Commander, the fleet is losing cohesion," an officer reported. "We can't communicate with the outer ships. Our shields are fluctuating. We're being overwhelmed by an unknown force." Vexer's heart raced. He had heard stories of Earth's ancient defenses, but he had dismissed them as myth. Now, standing on the precipice of failure, he had no choice but to confront the terrifying truth. Earth was more than just a primitive planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. "We need to adapt now," Vexer ordered, his voice sharp with frustration. "Set a course for the surface. We'll land and take the fight directly to them. If we can destroy their command center, we can cripple their defenses. But as his fleet descended further into Earth's atmosphere, they faced more unexpected challenges. Massive shockwaves rippled through the air, forcing the ships to adjust their flight paths. The deeper they went, the more distorted their instruments became. It felt as if the planet itself was aware of their every move. Meanwhile, on the surface, General Klein stood with a sense of purpose. She had known this day would come. For years, she had studied the ancient texts, piecing together the fragments of humanity's lost history. Earth had once been a mighty force in the galaxy, but it had been forgotten by all, until now. But the time for secrets was over. The Shaldra fleet won't know what hit them, Klein said, her voice filled with resolve. She turned to the officers around her, each of them ready to fight for Earth's survival. The ancient machinery beneath the surface of the planet hummed to life, and the sky above darkened as massive energy signatures began to form. These were no ordinary weapons. They were relics of an ancient time, created by humanity's forgotten ancestors. We've unlocked their power, Klein said, staring at the holographic map that showed the locations of the energy sources. Now we must use it. Activate the Earth defense grid. In space, the Shaldra fleet had finally regained control of their ships, but the damage had already been done. As they descended closer to Earth, they were met with a terrifying sight. Huge beams of light shot from the planet's surface, tearing through the atmosphere with precision and power. The Shaldra ships tried to defend themselves, but the energy pulses were too powerful. The sky was lit up with blinding flashes as the first line of Earth's ancient defense systems activated. "Commander, we're under attack," an officer shouted, pointing at the holographic display. A Shaldra fleet was being systematically crippled by Earth's energy beams, their shields flickering and collapsing under the onslaught. Vexer clenched his fists, his teeth grinding in frustration. He had never expected this level of resistance. "We need to hit the source of the power," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Our only chance is to reach the planet's surface and take out whatever is controlling these weapons. Move in." But as the fleet neared the planet's surface, they faced yet another obstacle. Suddenly, a massive glowing structure appeared on the horizon. An enormous ancient warship, unlike anything the Shaldra had ever seen. It was as though Earth had unleashed its own relic from a time long forgotten. The warship was enormous, its energy shields crackling with power, and it was now bearing down on the Shaldra fleet. "What is that?" Vexer gasped, staring at the ancient warship. It seemed to hum with energy, its weapons aimed directly at the approaching fleet. "It's not one of our ships," an officer replied, his voice full of disbelief. It's something else. Something ancient." The warship's weapons fired, sending devastating energy blasts that tore through the ranks of the Shaldra fleet. Several ships were destroyed in an instant, their hulks floating in space, torn apart by the power of Earth's ancient weaponry. Vexer's heart sank. His fleet, his empire, was being overwhelmed. There was no way they could withstand the might of Earth's forgotten power. "Fall back," Vexer shouted, his voice desperate. "We need to retreat. Now." But it was too late. The massive warship continued its relentless assault, cutting through the Shaldra fleet with ease. Earth's defenses had been awakened, and the galaxy would soon know the true power of humanity. On the surface, General Klein watched the battle unfold from her command center. The ancient warship, called the Eclipse by the legends, had been activated, and it was doing its job. She could feel the power of the ship, ancient and yet alive, as it fired upon the invaders. This was humanity's last line of defense, and it was unstoppable. "The fleet is in disarray," Klein said with a quiet smile. "We've done it." But she knew this battle was only the beginning. Earth had been forced into this war, but now the galaxy would witness the true strength of humanity. The Shaldra Collective had underestimated them, and now they would pay the price. "We've proven Earth's power," Klein said, her voice resolute. "Now we take the fight to them." We show them who we really are. The Shuldra fleet, once proud and powerful, now found itself in disarray. As Earth's ancient defense systems fired relentlessly upon them, Commander Vexor's mind raced for solutions. His ships were taking hits from all sides, their shields barely holding up under the intensity of Earth's counterattack. It was no longer just about taking control of the planet. It was about survival. On the bridge of his flagship, Vexor slammed his fist onto the control panel, frustration boiling inside him. The holographic display showed a grim picture. Several Shuldra ships were already adrift in space, their hulls shattered, their energy signatures extinguished. Earth's ancient warship, the Eclipse, was at the center of the destruction, firing wave after wave of devastating energy beams. "We need to regroup," Vexor barked. "Form a defensive perimeter around the flagship. If we lose this ship, we lose everything." His officers scrambled to carry out the order, but it was clear that their options were dwindling. The Shuldra fleet had underestimated humanity, assuming Earth was nothing more than a forgotten backwater world. Now they were learning the hard truth that humanity was far more capable than they had ever imagined. Vexor's mind raced. He couldn't afford to give up now. He knew that if he retreated, the Shuldra collective would never trust him again. His reputation, his career, everything he had worked for would be shattered. But the stakes were higher than personal pride. He had to win. For the Empire. For his people. Back on Earth, General Klein stood resolutely in the command center, watching the unfolding battle on multiple screens. Her face was set in a determined expression as she watched the Shuldra fleet continue to retreat, their once dominant ships now scattered and crippled. The Eclipse, their greatest weapon, was cutting through them like a hot knife through butter. "Their fleet is crumbling," one of her officers reported. "Their ships are falling back. Commander Vexor is trying to regroup, but it looks like his forces are in chaos." General Klein allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but only a moment. The battle was far from over. She knew that Vexor would not retreat for long. He would come back with a vengeance. The Shuldra Empire had never been one to simply accept defeat, and Klein suspected that their next move would be far more desperate and far more dangerous. "We need to be prepared for their counterattack," she said calmly, turning toward her officers. "Activate the secondary defenses around the planet. Make sure our anti-ship cannons are fully charged. We don't want to give them a chance to regroup." Her orders were quickly carried out, and the defenses around Earth began to hum with energy as the next phase of the battle began to unfold. But Klein couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. The Shuldra might be disorganized now, but they were nothing if not resilient. They would be back, and this time, they would be more dangerous than ever. On the edge of the Shuldra fleet, Vexor sat in silence, his eyes glued to the main display. The fleet had regrouped, but their situation had grown even more dire. The Shuldra ships were battered, their weapons systems malfunctioning, their shields nearly depleted. Worse still, they were entering a critical zone, closer to Earth's gravitational pull. "We're out of options," Vexor muttered to himself. The words echoed in his mind, mocking him. He had no choice but to face the truth. He had underestimated the humans, and now it might be too late to turn back. His second in command, a tall and grim-faced officer named Thrax, stepped forward. "Commander, we've been hit hard, but we still have one advantage." Vexor raised an eyebrow, his attention shifting to Thrax. "What advantage?" "The Eclipse," Thrax said, his voice steady. "We've seen it destroy our ships with ease, but what if we could use its power against them? What if we could turn their weapon into our own?" Vexor's eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting we capture the Eclipse?" Thrax nodded. "We can't beat them with sheer force anymore. But if we can board the warship, take control of it, we can turn its power against Earth itself. We have the means to breach its defenses." Vexor's mind raced as the plan unfolded in his mind. The idea of capturing Earth's most powerful weapon seemed like a long shot, but it was their only shot. He could feel the weight of the decision. If they failed, the Shaldra Empire would fall, and Earth would become the dominant force in the galaxy. But if they succeeded, it would change the entire balance of power. "We'll do it," Vexer said, his voice steady now. "Prepare a boarding party. We're going after the eclipse." As the Shaldra fleet began to make its move toward the eclipse, Earth's defenses began to brace for impact. The planet's energy shields were at full power, but Klein knew that they would have to hold long enough for the human forces to neutralize the Shaldra threat once and for all. She had one last weapon up her sleeve, an ancient technology that had been buried beneath the surface of Earth for millennia, waiting for this very moment. The Shaldra fleet, battered and bruised, was hanging on by a thread. They had lost many of their ships, and the remaining ones were barely functioning. Commander Vexer knew this would be their last chance. The eclipse had become their symbol of hope, their only hope for survival. If they could take control of it, they would not only turn the tide of the battle, but they could reassert their dominance over Earth. With the Shaldra fleet in disarray, Vexer's officers prepared for their final assault. A team of elite soldiers had been selected to board the eclipse and disable its core systems. These soldiers, known as the Shadow Fleet, were trained for situations just like this: high-risk, high-reward missions that required precision, stealth, and unmatched skill. They would infiltrate the human warship and take control from the inside. Vexer watched as his officers finalized the plans. A transport shuttle, equipped with stealth technology, would be their means of entry. It would land directly on the eclipse, bypassing the outer defenses, and the team would go in silently without warning. "We're ready, Commander," Thrax reported, his voice low and steady. "The shuttle is primed, and the boarding team is waiting for your signal." Vexer nodded, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on his chest. This was it. If they failed, everything was lost. But if they succeeded, they would deal Earth a devastating blow. It was the last gamble, and Vexer had no choice but to play it. On Earth, General Klein stood firm as she watched the Shaldra fleet regroup, preparing for one final offensive. The sight of the enemy ships rallying sent a chill down her spine. She had no illusions. The Shaldra were not ones to give up easily. Even with Earth's superior technology, the sheer power and resolve of the enemy could not be underestimated. "We need to remain vigilant," General Klein said, her voice steady as she addressed her command staff. "If they make a move on the eclipse, we'll have to respond instantly. They might have the numbers, but we have the technology and the will to protect our home." She turned to her tactical officer. "Prepare the countermeasures. I want everything ready. We'll give them no room to maneuver." But despite her confidence, Klein couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She knew the Shaldra were planning something desperate, but what? She couldn't predict their next move, and that uncertainty gnawed at her. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's defenses were strong, but so was the Shaldra fleet's determination. The stealth shuttle carrying the Shaldra boarding party moved silently through space, invisible to Earth's sensors. Its advanced cloaking systems rendered it undetectable as it approached the eclipse, Earth's flagship. Inside, the boarding team prepared for the mission that could either make or break the war. The leader of the Shadow Fleet, Captain Viral, checked his equipment one last time. His face was calm, almost indifferent, as he adjusted the straps of his combat gear. He had trained for this moment his entire life. There would be no room for mistakes. The team would need to act quickly and decisively if they had any hope of taking the eclipse. "Get ready," Captain Viral whispered to his team. "We're going in." The shuttle drifted silently toward the eclipse, making its way toward a landing bay that had been chosen for its proximity to the ship's vital systems. As it touched down, the team disembarked swiftly, moving with precision and purpose. They had no time to waste. They knew the risks, and they knew failure was not an option. They breached the eclipse's hull, their silent weapons in hand, and advanced through the dark corridors. The hum of the ship's engines echoed around them, but it was eerily quiet, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Every corner was a potential danger, every shadow a threat. They reached the core of the ship, where the heart of its power lay. But as they prepared to disable the Eclipse's systems, a harsh voice came over the intercom. Alert! Unauthorized entry detected. All units report to the lower levels immediately. The team froze. They had been detected. Back on Earth, General Klein was informed of the breach in the Eclipse's security. She had anticipated this moment. She knew that the Shaldra would stop at nothing to try and turn the tide in their favor. Activate the emergency protocols, Klein ordered. Lock down all entrances to the ship. We cannot afford to let them take control of the Eclipse. But it was already too late. The Shaldra boarding party had made it to the heart of the ship, and now they were in a race against time. In the heart of the Eclipse, Captain Viral and his team worked quickly to sabotage the power core. But they were not alone. Earth's security forces had arrived, and now a brutal firefight had erupted between the two factions. The sound of gunfire echoed through the halls as the boarding party fought tooth and nail to complete their mission. Vexor watched from his flagship, his eyes focused on the chaos unfolding aboard the Eclipse. The fate of the Shaldra fleet, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The ship trembled beneath the violent clash of forces. Inside the Eclipse, the battle raged in the tight hallways. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls as the Shaldra soldiers and Earth's defenders engaged in a desperate firefight. The boarding team had reached the core, but they had been ambushed. Commander Vexor's gamble had come down to this: success or complete destruction. Captain Viral, the leader of the Shadow Fleet, moved swiftly through the chaos. His team was scattered, engaged in battle with Earth's soldiers, trying to hold their ground long enough to complete their mission. The Shaldra were trained for these moments, but Earth's soldiers were relentless, using every piece of technology at their disposal. Viral, undeterred, pushed forward toward the central power core of the Eclipse. His helmet displayed a constant stream of data. Time running out, weapons engaged, a countdown to the Eclipse's activation. They had to disable it now, or the war was lost. Back aboard the Shaldra flagship, Commander Vexor watched the unfolding events with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. His fleet had suffered significant losses. His best warriors were fighting for their lives aboard the Eclipse. Yet the plan, his final, desperate play, had to succeed. There was no turning back now. They had either crippled Earth's defenses or secured their own demise. The Shaldra had underestimated the humans at every turn, but the Eclipse was their final weapon. Once Earth's most powerful ship was in Shaldra hands, the balance of power would shift irreparably. Earth's forces had nothing to compare to it. But as Vexor watched, the communication line to the boarding team went dark. No updates, no reports. Silence. A knot tightened in his stomach. Was the plan failing? His mind raced through the calculations. How many more of their ships could survive if this mission failed? How many would still be able to fight? He turned to his tactical officers. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. If the Eclipse falls into human hands, we will have no chance of victory, he barked. His voice was steady, but inside, doubt gnawed at him. The final assault could be their last. On Earth's side, General Klein's eyes flicked between monitors, her hands moving with expert precision as she coordinated the battle. The human defense forces had been stretched thin, but they had something the Shaldra lacked: unity and unyielding resolve. They were defending their home, their people, with every ounce of strength they could muster. Deploy reinforcements to the Eclipse, Klein ordered. We cannot allow them to take control. As Klein spoke, the Eclipse began to shake more violently. Red lights flashed across the warship's hull, signaling that the power core was being tampered with. A deep rumble echoed through the ship, vibrating every metal surface. It was the sound of impending destruction. Klein's eyes widened. Activate emergency lockdown protocols now, she barked. But before they could initiate the lockdown, the Shaldra boarding team inside the Eclipse made their final move. Captain Viral and a few of his remaining soldiers had reached the power core. In the chaos, they had managed to override the controls. They were seconds away from triggering a catastrophic overload, a move that could wipe out the entire fleet, human and Shaldra alike. Inside the Eclipse, Captain Viral faced the final moments of his mission. His breathing was heavy as he fumbled with the core's activation switches. His vision was blurry from the smoke and energy blasts all around him. His team, now down to only a few survivors, was engaged in a last-ditch effort to fend off Earth's soldiers. Time was running out. Viral keyed in the final sequence on the console, knowing that once this was done, there would be no turning back. "Activate the core," Viral yelled. A few seconds passed, then silence. Then the ship shook violently, its entire frame quaking as the energy core hummed with increasing intensity. The countdown had begun. Back on Earth, General Klein watched the status screens. The numbers were flashing, signaling that the Shaldra had indeed gained control of the Eclipse's power core, but at what cost? The humans had one final chance to prevent the destruction of the fleet and Earth itself. Klein was ready to give the order to deploy the final weapon. A countermeasure so dangerous, it had been kept as a last resort. The plan was a risky one, but it was the only way to ensure Earth's survival. She looked at her team with grim determination. "Prepare the EMP pulse. We only get one shot at this." The energy pulse had the potential to shut down the Eclipse and any other ship within range. But it came with great risk. If it failed, Earth's forces would be left defenseless against the Shaldra fleet. The plan was simple: activate the EMP pulse, and it would cripple the Eclipse's systems, including its newly won power core. Earth's soldiers would be able to board, regain control, and stop the Shaldra before the core could explode. Klein raised her hand, signaling the launch. With a devastating flash of light, the EMP pulse fired from Earth's command ship, streaking across the blackness of space toward the Eclipse. Time seemed to slow as it sped toward the Shaldra flagship. The pulse made contact with the Eclipse's energy grid, sending out a shockwave that rippled through the warship. The lights inside the Eclipse flickered and died, the core's hum slowly fading to nothing. Then everything went silent. The ship shuddered one final time before all systems powered down. The Shaldra fleet had been dealt a crippling blow. Vexer's eyes widened as he watched the Eclipse, the centerpiece of his victory, become a lifeless husk in space. His final play had failed. The humans had once again outmaneuvered him. He turned toward his bridge officers. "Prepare for retreat," he ordered, his voice quiet but heavy. "We've lost." The humans had won. The final assault was over, and Earth had emerged victorious. The Shaldra Empire, once so sure of their dominance, had been humbled. Earth's people had proven once again that no matter the odds, they would fight to protect their home. As General Klein watched the remaining Shaldra fleet retreat into the distance, a sense of relief washed over her. But she knew this victory would not be the end. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, and Earth's true strength had only just begun to unfold.